Well, worries about swine flu haven't stopped thousands of people from flocking to the Windy City this week to talk about wind. From sensors to rotor blades, wind is in the air as the Wind Power 2009 conference gets underway at Chicago's McCormick Place. A group of Evanstonians says there's no better place to talk about harnessing some of the stuff we're so famous for. Citizens for a Greener Evanston have hatched a plan to build a wind farm offshore about 4 miles out on Lake Michigan. So here to tell me all about it is Nathan Kipnis, an Evanston-based architect and co-chair of the group's Renewable Energy Task Force. Welcome to 848, Nathan.
Thank you for having me here.
Well, so lay it out. You're talking about 10 turbines about 4 miles out up the lake near where Northwestern is?
That's exactly right.
How big an area are you imagining this would take
It's
up?
a little under 2 miles in length, and like you said, 4 miles out, which is a really great place for lots of wind and very shallow water, surprisingly.
And that's a benefit in terms of constructing wind turbines?
Right. I mean, the deeper it is, the more expensive it gets. And it's a good combination where we do actually have we think we have very good wind out there.
How deep do the turbines themselves have to go into the lake bed?
I'm not exactly sure how far down they go, but the water out there is about 45, 50 feet deep, which is actually quite shallow for being that far out. And Evanston happens to have a little shelf that sticks out right there.
Yeah.
And so it is a great spot.
So how much energy would these turbines generate potentially?
They would produce enough power to offset about 10,000 homes. So that's about a third of the homes in Evanston.
And that, is that a big chunk of the energy needs or?
Oh, yeah, that's a tremendous amount. And what we have is the Climate Action Plan. And that's trying to reduce our carbon by 13% by the year 2012.
Okay,
and,
for the city of Evanston.
For the city of Evanston. And there's 220 items on our list. This one's the biggest item. The other ones are really important, too. But this will do about 60% of our goal.
Why is that? Why you think this is a good idea? Just because it'll accomplish so much toward that goal, or
well,
what else?
There's a lot of great reasons. It would make sense even without the Climate Action Plan. But it would be a great benefit to Northwestern potentially and to the city of Evanston. Tourism, great source of pride, and the fact that it really would help reduce our carbon footprint.
How do you get the energy from the turbines out on the lake to the grid?
Well, it's a lot easier from there than it is to do it in downstate Illinois or out in Idaho. It's a big cable, and it would come on shore, and there'd be a transformer that would get it onto the grid.
And how do you pay for it? I mean, do you need public subsidies? Is this privately funded?
Well, that's something we're working on, but we think that one really good idea is that a wind farm developer would see that this is a perfect spot and would actually finance this. And the idea is that they would sign a power agreement with the city of Evanston and or Northwestern or maybe even some of the surrounding communities and provide power at a fixed rate, and that would make sense for the developer and it'd make sense for the end user as well.
Do you have any interest yet? I mean, have you been floating the idea to people?
Well, it's an ongoing process. There is a lot of interest because I get a lot of emails from wind developers and wind consultants in particular who are interested in what we're doing. I believe it will work quite well.
What about environmental issues? I mean, you're talking about 10 turbines, but from what I understand, the ones that you build on the water have to be bigger. And I know there are cases in Michigan and Ohio where they're thinking about much bigger wind farms on the lake. Mm-hmm. What kind of environmental consequences could this have?
Well, there are a couple that would need to be studied as part of an environmental impact study. And they would be, birds and fish would be the primary ones. From our standpoint at this initial time, we think that these wind turbines, the blades actually move relatively slow. This is not like earlier versions where they're going very high speed. And these are not open lattice structures where birds would actually nest on the towers. Mm-hmm. These are smooth towers. So all this would have to be taken into account. And I don't believe there'd be an issue, but, that's something that would be studied.
Is your sense, though, that, there's also potential disruption to commercial navigation on the lake? And then the cost and the environmental factors, do you still feel like this is a good idea?
You know, in our task force, we've got some really smart people, and we've looked at all these different issues, and every time we keep looking at it, we don't see any reason to stop thinking about this. And there's no red flags going up. The navigation issue, I think actually it's pretty minimal navigation out there. But, you know, as part of the approvals, the Coast Guard...
recreational.
Well, recreational, you know, in Europe they have them offshore, and boaters go out there, and they have tours that go out there, and we actually think Evanston would benefit greatly from having tours go out there.
So who gets to decide? I mean, what's the process, next steps? Who weighs in on whether this could actually happen or not?
There is quite a group of people that this would have to go through. I've been told it's about a 7-year process. So the first thing is to start looking at the wind and to start discussing things with potential funding sources. And then there's a whole slew of agencies, Department of the Interior, Coast Guard, FAA, Homeland Security, on and on. The land is owned by the state of Illinois. Obviously, they would be involved. There's a lot of people. Corps of Army Engineers.
It's a long process.
Oh, yeah.
What are you hearing from people in Evanston about this?
Well, so far so good. I mean, obviously, not everyone's going to ever agree on any issue 100%, but we have had positive feedback, and you know, we've put on some public discussions about it and have discussed the various ideas, and people have been pretty receptive to it.
Nathan Kipnis is an Evanston-based architect. He's co-chair of a Citizens for a Greener Evanston's Renewable Energy Task Force. They've got a plan to put a group of wind turbines about 4 miles out on Lake Michigan. Nathan, thanks for coming in and talking with us.
You're welcome. Thank you.